Hey everybody, welcome to Bura. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about this developer that made Google Maps on the NES. Alright, welcome back. Before we start this video, I want to make sure that you like and subscribe. In this episode on Around the Internet, I'm going to be talking about how someone took an April Fool's joke and actually made it a reality. This is a more important project than you think. So if you haven't been to Around the Internet before, in Around the Internet, I take a look at something that happens well on the internet. It could be a YouTube video, a post, a Twitter, a Reddit post. It can be anything that I think is worth of note. And this is really, really cool. So first of all, there was a joke made by Google that said that they put Google Maps on the NES. Now, of course, the NES is very old hardware, but what this person actually did is they actually made it work. And I think this is quite funny. But what's really important about this is that I often talk about, trying to get a job. And if you can do something like this in your spare time, chances are you will find yourself a job at some point in time. This is a really interesting project that completely stands out. When you're young, you want to stand out as much as you can. And if you do something like this, and you get all this press coverage, chances are you'll be able to find a job because someone will want to hire you for your ingenuity. And specifically, this particular job is, or this particular hack, or whatever you want to call this, it's quite ingenuitive. So what he's done here is so this, if I kind of just scroll through some of this April Fool's jokes, they actually tried to make this, Google Maps on the NES. But this guy actually did it, and it's really cool. So you can basically what it does is it connects to Google Maps and it renders it on the NES, and it's actually not bad. Now, why is this important? Well, I always talk about in my videos that our technology is getting too complex, and that's a really bad thing. Well, something like the Nintendo Entertainment System, while it might not be, as buildable, the point is you can actually get something like Google Maps to work on it. Now, of course, it requires a ton of extra server infrastructure to make work, and but the point is that you'd be able to get something like you can get something sort of that sort of works on your on your NES to work, and this is something that's really cool. So congrats to this guy for doing that. And again, the other things that I talk about in Buratech, is when it comes to making technology too complex, you always want to simplify things down. And the only thing, though, is that it's hard to simplify the hardware down. And the NES is incredibly basic. It's very old, first of all. It's coming up on 40 years. I think it's 35 years old, 1985. Yeah, so it's like 36 years old. So 1985, 36-year-old technology, and they're pairing that with modern technology. That's the real thing that you need to understand from this. The pairing of those two kind of technologies to make them work is very impressive, and and will become more important. One thing that is creeping up in every news circle is inflation. And if inflation does get out of hand, then you might not be able to get new technology. It might be too expensive. Your MacBook Pro could be $10,000 due to inflation. And I mean, whether or not that's going to happen is anybody's guess. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But let's say inflation like Weimar Republic Germany happens, and all of a sudden your technology gets ridiculous. Well, solutions like this are going to be absolutely needed. And what really needs to happen is, even as we're talking about this right now, Windows 11 is booting out older PCs. Well, that's a problem, because it's a problem because we need those old PCs to function. And the more stuff that happens like this, the better. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a movement that does this kind of work in the future. And that kind of work would be making sure new technology pairs with old technology. You could take an old Pentium computer, like a Pentium 75 computer, and make it view the web in some interesting way. That would be a very interesting subculture. If that subculture exists, please post it in the comments. I'd really like to know. I'd really like to know if that exists. I think it should exist, and I think there's a lot of people that think of some things like this particular project here, and if they think of this particular project, then there's got to be others, right? Like, this is the person who took it all the way, and for every person that took a project all the way, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people who thought about doing this, right? So I bet you there was hundreds, if not thousands, of people that thought about actually doing this, because Google actually did make the original one here. And if I kind of go here, they'll see that they're trying to do this here, and so this is I mean, this is a joke, of course. This is an April Fool's joke, but you can kind of see. This might be, while it's a joke, we might have to do this in the future, where we use old PCs to connect with the new technology in some way, shape, or form. It's just like, for example, a good example of this would be the game StarCraft. There's a mode in there that will take the graphics down to next to nothing, so it can be played on a lot of computers. And I think the same thing will happen with other things, because like technology getting too complex is a problem. I understand that you have to move the needle forward with technology, but at some point in time, you realize that there's a certain amount of functionality that you need, and as long as like the actual hardware isn't broken, why do you need to upgrade your device? This poses a huge problem for all the big tech companies. So I could see like a Linux type movement for this maker. So for making old technology work with new, that kind of person. And it would be very interesting to see. I do know there's a lot of people who are thinking about this, and this movement needs a name, because I'm pretty up to date on things, but it needs a name, and I foresee that community growing. All right, so that concludes this video. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think it's a dumb idea? Please let me know in the comments down below. And remember that this channel doesn't do a Patreon. Instead, we sell our digital products. It really does help us out. Also, if you want something for me to do an episode of Around the Internet somewhere, please let me know. Just write what you want down in the comments, and I'll see what I can do. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.